So to begin with, create a scene with control the hbox, text edit, a vbox container with a button, and an HTTP request. The text edit is where we will put our text. The button is for sending, and HTTP request will be for actually communicating with the OpenRouter server, which is what we will use as backend today. Then zoom. First, we will need to make a couple exports. We will use the notepad type that allows us to select the node inside of the editor. We will need one for the HTTP, for the button, and for the text edit. In this case, I call them HTTP or send an editor. We go back to Godot and then we can actually connect everything together, as you can see. We save once and we will not use the editor for a while. So we need to create a variable for our model, for our API key, and for the endpoint. That is the URL. Model and key, you can write them down here. In my case, I use an environment variable to not show them on the video, but if you're gonna just use this yourself, you can write them here. All of these are strings, that's why I add the type hint. You don't need to put the type hint, it works anyway. So we begin with the read function. We need to connect a couple of signals. We will have to connect one for the HTTP, one for the button, and then we will do the initialization of model and key. In order to the reference to call it somehow the notepad, we need to use the getNode function. That's why you see getNode HTTP or. For the environment variables, we have a getEnvironment function on the OS singleton. In this case, I'm using multi-line writing in order to just write once, but you can just copy paste the first line and change it. Now, if you are just using it for yourself, again, you can write the model name and key when you declare the variable, and you wouldn't need to set environment variables like I do. But in order to show in YouTube, is easier this way. Now, send function is the callback for our button down signal. We need here to set the editor text so that the text edit to read only. That will prevent the user from editing while we are waiting for a response from the server. Then we get the HTTP and we actually make the request. First goes the endpoint, so the URL. Second, we need the headers in which we will add our API key via the authorization bearer header. Then the true that I'm gonna write stands for use SSL, if I recall correctly. HTTP client.methodPost is the method for the request, and then we have to create the body. This has to be a string, so we do to JSON, and inside of it we write a dictionary, and in that dictionary we add the keys model equals model and prompt equals getNode editor.text. So we take the text and send it as the prompt to the API. Then we need our callback for request completed. that is what we receive from the server. This takes a couple parameters: result, which is Godot's error code, which is the error code from the server; headers, the headers that it sends; and finally body, which is where we have the important part of the response. The first thing we will do is check that result is not 0 and that code is not 200, so that we check that there weren't any errors. In case there were, we're gonna push an error so that the console rises up and tells us, hey, this is an error. And then of course we have to return from this function so the rest of the other things do not continue, because if there was an error, the body probably will not have any text. And finally we get the node for the editor and we set the text that we received. In the case of OpenRouter, that will be from the body. We need to convert it to an UTF-8 string, then we parse that JSON, and then we can take from it choices, which is a string. From that thing we get the first element, 0, which is a dictionary, and from that dictionary we get text, which is the text generated by the LLM. In this case I forgot to add a parenthesis to get string from UTF-8. That will raise me an error later, but just remember, get string from UTF-8, open parenthesis, close parenthesis. And I almost forgot, get node editor dot read only equals false, so that the user can edit the text afterwards. And in send we're gonna add a check, so if the editor is already on read only, we cancel the operation, because if you create multiple HTTP requests on the same HTTP request node, it gives you an error. It can only process one at a time. So we can use the read-only status to verify if we are still waiting for a response. In this case we use push warning instead of push error, because it's not really a very important problem. Here is where it gives me the error from the get string from UTF-8, and I go fix it and delete the parenthesis, and just like that we're ready to go. In this case I have added a theme that I had already made with like a font and some colors. That is absolutely not necessary. I just did it because it looks nicer on the video, and I kind of needed to create the theme because I need to make the font bigger. Otherwise, with my low-end computer, the way I record, it would be impossible to read what's on screen. Here I'm gonna remove actually the theme if I can find it. There we go. As you can see, without the theme it is still 100% usable, and it has generated a lot of text, and we can even just feed this text back to the LLM. And I think that that's probably the most useful part about having this text completion style instead of the chat completion, is that you can have it continue from where it has left before. So yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed.